is our history. Buildings and people and memories and dreams. Who better to tell us than those who were there? There's so much to learn from the stories they'll share.
Living history. Living history.
Hello, this is Ted Goldsboro with another Living History show. Today we're going to be talking to Frank Weer, who is a Lower Merion 1952 alumnus and a good friend of mine. Frank lived for a good part of his life in Lower Merion Township, and we're going to be talking about his growing up in Lower Merion and the schools he went to and what his father did for a job, and we'll see some family pictures. So welcome. Frank, welcome to the Living History Show. Thanks for coming today. I wonder if you'd be good enough to look at that photo that I put in front of you and tell me what you see.
Sure. It's a little end row house in East Falls on Barclay Street, which I lived in as a child from birth to about age 7. And I was actually born in the Women's Medical College Hospital that was new in that year 1932, in East Falls. My father worked for the country club at Bala then in the West Park part of the city, and he walked every day from that house to across the river and up to the country club.
Which bridge would he use?
The Falls Bridge,
which still exists.
Yeah, it's still there, and there was a pathway that is now long gone. It would be where the expressway is now. So,
okay.
I remember going there with him many times. Because
why didn't he drive?
Didn't have a car.
Didn't have a car.
And there was no direct public service on that route, so he had no choice really. But
how long might that walk have taken?
Oh, probably 20 minutes or so. Okay. I guess it wasn't really that far,
but that morning and afternoon.
Yeah, and in all kinds of weather, and and he was in charge of the plumbing and heating and so forth of the country club. It was a fairly large installation for that era, and they had just opened up a central plant heating and hot water system in about 1930 or early 30s. And they needed somebody that had an engineer's license to run it because it was high pressure, 75 pounds pressure, so you could not have anybody operate it. It had to be somebody qualified. So he was lucky he got the job because before that he had a plumbing. Well, they had a plumbing business in East Falls from about 1890. The family came from Delaware, Wilmington, and the grandfather started it. And how he got into plumbing was he worked for the Pullman company. They had a big works on the outside of Wilmington, and he did piping on the Pullman cars for this new kind of gas. It was called pinch gas, and it was very volatile. So you couldn't have leaks in the plumbing. The place would have blown up. But
for those who don't know, tell us what the Pullman was.
Well, it was the hotel of the era on wheels that, believe it or not, that they actually slept more people every night on Pullman cars than they did in hotels in that era. It's hard to believe, but it was the largest hotel on wheels operator.
Okay. A fancy railroad car.
Yeah, it was very fancy, and well, I did get to ride on them when I worked for the railroad. But anyhow, of course, doesn't exist now.
Yes.
But,
now, what kind of fuel powered that Bala Golf Club?
Oh, coal. Everything was coal. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, how would they get that coal to that building?
Delivered by truck from an operator. I guess his name was Kunkel. I think he was a fairly large operator in West Philadelphia.
Right.
Had a yard at 63rd and Market Street.
Right.
You know,
I remember that Kunkel across from Sears.
Yeah, he was also a member of the country club, but anyhow, it fitted in.
Now, Frank, where today? Give me some landmarks today, so people know where this was.
Well, it was the country club was actually a large area bounded by Conshohocken Road, Monument Road, City Avenue, and the park boundaries, and it had an 18-hole golf course. It had swimming pool. It had squash courts, tennis courts, a greenhouse. It was very extensive. It just sort of grew up from. It was a mansion originally. There were like the park mansions that are still there along the Schuylkill. I can't remember the name of the family, but they sold it. It was built in 1835, and then they sold it to the country club in 1890, and it was very extensive place.
The building's still there.
Oh, and they also had polo.
Oh,
polo. They had all these stalls for the horses. It was quite a place.
So you had to have some horsemen there that knew their horses.
Yeah, they were coming and going. I actually got to see a couple of the polo games, which is pretty rare now. I don't know any place around here that has them. But
would Woodside Park have been down?
Their polo field abutted Woodside Park.
Okay, which was an amusement park?
Amusement park. It was there pretty much the same time as the country club. It was there from 1896 when they built the park trolley, and it closed in 46, and I think Woodside pretty much closed around the same era. But
okay, now I have another shot here for you.
Okay, yeah.
Who is that?
Well, that's my mother. A picture that I took on the deck on the top of the RCA Building in New York. But that was a favorite place for us to visit, since we lived in what was then a rural area. Our closest neighbor was like a quarter of a mile away.
Explain, because that's not
what it is now.
Yeah, but it's not East Falls. Where are you living?
Right. Okay. Well, on November the 15th, 1939, we moved to Gladwyne, or as the country club called it, Spring Mill. But anyhow, and from that point on, we lived in a house on the grounds of the country club. And now, however, my father had to go to Bala every day. Pretty much, that was the main part of the country club until the mid-1950s when it was sold. But so anyhow, then as I say, we lived there until 1963 when my father retired. Well, since as I say, it was a rural area, it was quite a transition for an 8-year-old from being a city kid to having almost nobody to play with, unless they came to visit us. But,
so that's your mom.
Yeah, and
how'd you get to New York?
The way I like to go to New York was on the famous Reading Railroad Crusader train. It was the first streamlined train in the East. So that was fun. It was still steam too. And
you'd go into the Reading terminal.
Reading terminal, and then to New York. And then another reason I liked it was because you arrived in New York on a ferry boat, and you could see all the big buildings. So that was
so the train would terminate, and then you'd get off and
get
onto
off.
a ferry.
Right? It was a.
And then when you got into New York City, where
then you used the subway. At least that's what we did. This was Lower Manhattan. It went to Liberty Street, and then you took the subway up to the Midtown, and that's where most of the tourist stuff was.
Now, did you, from early days, did you have a camera, and where'd you get that camera? And
Oh, I got it at Williams, Brown and Earl. It was a big photographic place on Chestnut Street for years. Photographs and other instruments that they
did anybody else in your family take pictures?
Yes, my cousin. In fact, I think there may be some in there that he took. Okay, now this one is at the front steps of the house that we lived in on Lafayette Road, and that's my uncle and my father sitting there, and our dog in the middle. And
which one's your father?
Yeah, my father would be on the left side, and the uncle on the right side.
Okay.
And then there's a picture of the house, and that was originally built by Joseph Keach in 1878, and he had this farm until about the 1890s, and then it was all sold to a guy by the name of Jones.
Now, Frank, we're coming up pretty soon on a break, so let's finish with this thought. Is this house still here?
No, it is not. It was torn down. I don't know the exact date. Sometime in the 1980s, I believe.
Okay. Now, we're going to have to take a little break, but we'll be right back with Frank Weer on Living History.